This is Coda Radio, episode 223 for September 19th, 2016. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and its related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. Tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our excellent host on the East Coast, posed with his Xcode updates, is Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Mr. Fisher.
How are you doing? Are you feeling up to the show today, sir? Are you ready to go and fired up?
You could say that I am ready and standing at attention for the show today.
I've been watching a little bit of Twitter traffic back and forth to that regard. I think we'll be getting into that as the show goes on today. I'm actually extremely excited about today's show, not just because I've had my butter coffee.
Ew.
Yeah, I'm 2 weeks into it, and I'm sometimes having two a day now.
What the hell is butter coffee?
We don't know. No, I won't because we've talked about this before, and I don't want to. Okay,
I don't think we have though, buddy.
Okay, I wasn't going to do this at the top of the show, the coffee thing, because some people love it, some people hate it. But okay,
someone's literally making me a cup of coffee right now, so we can compare notes. And
do you ever put cream in your coffee?
They hate most of the show.
Okay, all right. Yeah, all right. Okay, all right. You know what? You're right. I should remember that. Do you ever put cream in your coffee ever?
No, because I'm a man.
Yeah, okay. See, most people I have never been a cream in my coffee kind of guy either. Never been a cream in my coffee kind of guy. However, I've every now and then experimented with the chocolates or something like that. You know, just kind of flirted with it a little bit.
So it was something you did in college? Is that what you're getting at?
I was in California. So, you know.
Oh.
Anyways, I tapered off the coffee because I either wanted to do something that I really wanted great coffee, or I didn't want coffee. And some of the longtime audience members remember we got some great coffee that was sent into the show, and I still have my AeroPress, still use it from time to time. But
see, I never went AeroPress deep because I just couldn't justify it. They're cheap now, though, right?
Yeah,
what does that run you?
No, $25, $30, $40. It's a really cheap setup, and if you have great beans and you have a grinder, it only takes you a few minutes. The longest thing is warming the water up, and if you get like an electric kettle, it really doesn't take that long to make coffee this way because it only has to steep for 3 to 5 minutes or so. So it is a phenomenal. I went from somebody who did not like coffee to somebody who worshipped coffee. But I actually don't have time to get the beans, and my coffee use fluctuates from on pretty hard to off. And sometimes I accidentally stray into like the energy drink territory, and that's bad. Too much sugars and stuff.
Ooh, that's a bad place.
But I'm really back big into coffee right now because, well, I talked about it in the last episode of User Error, so I won't go into a lot of detail. But I'm basically just having a cup of coffee in the morning with some butter in it and some MCT coconut oil, and I blend it in my like Vita blender thingy that's like a super fast blender. It's just like a cup. It's got like a cup that goes on the top and it blends. And every now and then I put a little vanilla extract in there too when my lady makes it. I don't have any vanilla extract here at the office. And it's surprisingly good. It doesn't taste coconutty. It doesn't taste oily. It just tastes like a frothy coffee if you have a good blender. And it works. You drink it. So I drank mine today at about 9 a.m. It's noon now, and I will probably grab lunch after this show sometime. Maybe actually after Tech Talk, because I have another show after this. In fact, then I have a recording session I need to do, so I might actually not grab lunch today till 3 o'clock. And I don't get that starvation mode after drinking coffee that I used to get, where I would get really hungry as the coffee wore off.
Wait, coffee makes you hungry?
Yeah. So, well, as it wears off.
I can replace like a light meal with coffee.
While the coffee's in full force and the caffeine's hit me, my appetite is suppressed. When the caffeine begins to wear off, my appetite ramps way up, and I get like this sick gut-wrenching hunger that I have to eat immediately. And so if I would have coffee at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, or really 7 before or something like that before I leave, I would be starving by 10:30. I would be such a wreck that I would have to place like an order for a sandwich before the shop opened, or I would come down in the kitchen and make myself a meal. I mean, and it would be like this huge meal, and I would be and then I would crash from the food from just like gorging myself. And so what the coconut oil and the butter do is they seem to provide enough sustenance with the caffeine that it doesn't leave me just hollowed out afterwards. And it's a nice way to just have a cup of coffee in the morning and then have a late lunch.
So how much does it cut the flavor of the actual coffee, though, would be my...
Well, it depends on how much. I don't use a lot of butter, but it depends on how much you use, yeah. I know I've talked about this before, so I kind of feel bad for talking about it. However, I know it sounds like a lunatic thing to some people, but I guess I am kind of advocating it at the moment because it's been a huge game changer, not just for myself, but also for my girlfriend who's been doing it with me. And she... she usually would spend 45 minutes in the morning making breakfast, and it's not that. I think there's also
45 minutes in the morning making breakfast.
Yeah, she'd make a whole thing.
I'm lucky if I spend 4 to 5 minutes in the morning making breakfast.
I think part of the other pushback I get from the audience, and it's a real common thing. Everybody's heard this before. Right. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. We've all heard that, right? So breakfast is. If anybody listening. Could link in the subreddit to any legitimate peer-reviewed science that ever has demonstrated that. Because what you will find is there are cereal companies behind that slogan. I know it sounds ridiculous, but there actually is no science that I could find.
Are you about to go all unfiltered on me about?
No, I'm just leaving it at that. Nope, I'm leaving it at that. I'm just saying. So if you're listening, you think, "Geez, Chris, you're crazy. You're starving your body. You're missing the most important meal of the day." Just consider I have looked into that, and I would encourage you to also look into it to make sure it's not just something that sort of gets repeated without any actual basis behind it. So I've been finding it to be not only okay. Here's what I love about it is I have a cup of coffee and I'm good to go till about 2 o'clock, which really works a lot better with my schedule.
Well, not only that, I mean, not to channel Jon Snow, but winter is coming. So
yeah, it already is here. It's here, and I mean, it's fall here in Washington.
I mean, you're on the wall, right? I mean, to use the Game of Thrones metaphor, do you see White Walkers and giants a lot?
Just Bigfoot.
You might as well be in Canada.
Yeah, really. Depending on where you visit here, sometimes you accidentally get thrown over to Canadian cell towers, and I pick up Canadian broadcast television from where I live.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
So
speaking of the Pacific Northwest, you're going to say, yeah, go ahead.
No, just on the coffee note. Today I'm drinking, I think, the last of my Puerto Rican coffee, which is very disappointing.
Oh.
Great blend from a listener of the show.
Yeah.
And I believe, though, because, see, I'm such an addict now, I'm on a monthly coffee order from my local coffee shop.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know if anything in my area has that.
They will if you buy more than or they might. I mean, this shop, if you buy more than a pound, they actually give you a slight discount on the whole beans, or I do a French press grind. And it's basically 2 or 3 pounds a month of whatever the newest blends are. Yes.
That sounds fun. That's a very Seattle thing. You'd fit in really well over here.
You know what? I'll bring my vinyl record collection. It'll be great.
All right. So speaking of the Seattle area, Microsoft is making headlines over at Business Insider this week.
Yes.
And it seems to be based on the fact that if you go by the numbers, Microsoft is now weighing in number one as a GitHub contributor with 16,419 contributions, edging out Facebook with their 15,000.
And
this is
Docker,
nuts,
right? Or my
yes, Docker. I believe Docker was in there as well. This really does this. There is some sort of, I guess the saying, the proof is in the pudding. There is.
It seems legit to me. I mean, I know you.
I'm struggling here.
You're fighting the war of 1995. So I don't know. They seem sincere. I mean, they're doing the work. These are their employees that are, they're on their salary, on their dime, doing the work.
And they're not just contributing to Microsoft projects, although
they're contributing to all kinds of stuff, right? I mean, aren't they one of the top contributor now to the Linux kernel?
Well, they were a couple of years ago as they were introducing patches for their Hyper-V virtualizer or hypervisor. Okay. But I don't believe that's the case anymore. I think they're still an active contributor, but that was sort of like a burst of device drivers and compatibility stuff. Yeah. But today that was GPL code they produced, so I don't know. That would be that actually would be the stat I would be most interested in. what is the number one license and what is the breakdown? Because they've created some GPL code, but something tells me that's not the predominant code that Microsoft.
Well, even if it's like the BSD license or the Apache 2 license, which is the one I always use, what's wrong with that?
Well, at this point, what difference does it make? I would say it would show a lack of strategic influence over their decisions.
I don't understand that. What do you mean? The Apache 2 and BSD are pretty damn far from a pure GPL.
I guess my feel of it is that if you saw Microsoft contributing a lot of GPL code, say predominantly GPL code, that would seem to suggest that they are genuinely contributing to things that are meant to be integrated in part of Linux, versus something that's when it's an Apache license, that's great, but it doesn't feel like it's.
So what if Microsoft released a next generation web development and web API development framework under an open source license that was reasonably acceptable? Would that count less to you? And this is just me spitballing, than them, contributing a bunch more drivers to, the next generation Linux kernel?
I think that's a hard call, because I think what the line is for me is, and of course this is where the court of opinion comes in to make judgment. It's what is the motivation behind the release of code? Right, exactly. Is it to further the Azure platform and Windows? Is it to further .NET development, because that in the long run is better for? Actually, so here's a better way to summarize it: is it a play to attempt to make Windows somewhat still relevant in the server market or not? Okay,
so two big projects they've recently open sourced. Well, actually, three, right? .NET Core, ASP.NET.
Yeah.
I know they have I think it's ASP.NET Core.
Aren't they doing PowerShell or something too?
Yeah, but really, PowerShell. But I was actually thinking of good old Xamarin.
Oh, yeah.
Which is now open source.
Right.
That's, obviously they get something for that. It means, hopefully more traction for their platforms and more developers on their platform. But I really find it hard to kind of take this win away from them.
I'm not trying to take it away from them. No, I think it's a remarkable achievement and a huge landmark, and right. It is one of the few things that are going on in the tech industry right now that make me go, wow, it is really 2016 and things have changed. It still gives me that feeling.
Oh, I can tell you things have changed just from from even like just 10 years ago, right? Doing a sale, it's all open source is basically assumed now. No one's seriously considering proprietary systems, at least that I've been speaking to, unless they have some sort of legacy problem, right? Like they've been in access for 400 years. And
it totally is different for shops that have an established, long-running IT department where they have, who knows what technology. There is, and that is a huge freaking market.
But even then, it sounds like if you kind of go to their events, which I've been trying to do more and more, there's a desire to modernize, to get out of this cycle of supporting legacy proprietary software that they can't really support.
That's interesting. I wonder if that is a conflict internally. That is an interesting predicament.
There's probably a cost issue to it too, right? Open source projects, you can make more informed decisions about, where proprietary ones, what if the vendor disappears on you?
Right. And that is extremely relevant too in the smaller business sector, where you want to kind of make a big spend, and then you want that platform that you just bought or that thing you just bought to work quite a while, and you want to have some oversight on it.
Well, we have something later in the show about you want the solution platform or the programming language to be stable and last for more than 18 months.
And also, I want to talk, speaking of things that come and go, I want to talk about Eclipse. I thought this was a really interesting article that floated by. I know. Yeah. So you know what? Let's, before we get off the whole cloud thing, because we were just talking all cloud stuff, let's mention our first sponsor this week, DigitalOcean. This is where you go spin up your own server under your control. We were just chatting in the chat room today. Ironically, chatting in the chat room. About spinning up a DigitalOcean droplet to help out with the FreeBSD project. And I thought that was there's a lot of different use cases for DigitalOcean, but I kind of like that one too, where it's like, this open source project needs a mirror. They need somebody to seed this. And DigitalOcean's got a $5 droplet. It's $5 a month. You get 512 megs of RAM, You get a terabyte of transfer. You get a 20 gigabyte SSD. That could really go somewhere. That could really help somebody out. And you could just run it for 2 months for free if you use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. I've used DigitalOcean just recently to start playing with LibreVault, to mess around with things like cloud-hosted OBS broadcasting. And of course, I use it to host my back-end services. In fact, we have BitTorrent sync servers out there that distribute content to hundreds of our unfiltered patrons. It's a really cool system that I was able to rig together through DigitalOcean. And they have private networking, so servers in the data center can communicate with each other. It doesn't account at all against your transfer. If you use our promo code CODERDIGITAL, you get a $10 credit. And they have hourly pricing, too, at unbelievable rates that are just amazing. You'll find that you can apply that code, mess with something on there, see if it works for you, put it in production, and it's almost guaranteed that timeline is totally running for free. They have great prices. In fact, mess around on their site and you can check them out. All of their devices are backed by SSDs. They have data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, Germany, and in India now. I have high availability block storage. You can add it as you need it, up to 16 terabytes. That's also SSD backed. And remember that hourly pricing? So they default to monthly, but you toggle it over to hourly. 3 cents an hour for 2 gigs of RAM, 2-core processor, 40 gigabyte SSD, and 3 terabytes of transfer. That's great, because 3 cents an hour is going to get you a long way when you get a $10 promo code when you use our code CODERDIGITAL. All one word, you apply it to your account. They've also recently just rolled out high memory droplets. Dun, dun, dun. 128 gigabytes, 224 gigabytes at the high end, 64 gigabytes of memory. All of this just pennies on the dollar. Look at that, 18 cents an hour, 36 cents an hour, 71 cents an hour, $1.43, and then $2.05 or 50 cents an hour for 32-core processor, 500 gigabyte SSD, 10 terabytes of transfer, and 224 gigabytes of RAM. Oh my God. And they got the whole range, right? From the $5 droplets all the way up now. And you can deploy a ready-to-build distro of Linux, start from scratch with a base installer or FreeBSD too. And they got great documentation. Just use our promo code CODERDIGITAL over at DigitalOcean.com. And thanks to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio programs. DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. All right, Mr. Dominic. So just an interesting stat, and stats can mean a lot of things, but there is a post. We'll link it in the show notes, called The Fall of Eclipse, that was published just a few days ago. And it shows that over the time period of 2012 to 2016, in terms of overall representation of the, what does he say? Yeah, so they did a survey, and of the respondents, in 2012, 62% were using Eclipse. By 2016, it has fallen to 41%, mostly falling to IntelliJ IDEA, and NetBeans has remained rather flat, while Eclipse has fallen dramatically.
Yeah. This was kind of a trend I saw over the beginning of my career and to now. My first gig, Eclipse was that's actually not true. NetBeans was mandatory, but I was a rebel and I used Eclipse. Then I decided I hated Eclipse.
Is it the plugins? Is it because it's ugly? What is it? I mean, because a lot of IDs have plugins. A lot of IDs are ugly.
Well, I would say like sophomore in college, Mike would have said it doesn't look nice on my pretty little MacBook. Or I couldn't figure out how to configure it on Ubuntu at home.
Yeah, there was a long time. Now it's easier, but there was a long time where it was, that's an interesting note right there, is it's never actually been easier to set it up, especially on Ubuntu. Right. And its usage is still dropping like a rock.
But then I was compelled to use Eclipse again when I started doing Android development. If you remember briefly, Eclipse was the IDE for Android, right? It was
that's why I assumed just it would have a lot of momentum from that.
No, so I mean, I backed this up with virtually nothing, just with anecdotal evidence and what people were talking about on Reddit and Hacker News, which is obviously not an awesome source for information. So the Android Studio is actually a version of the IntelliJ Community Edition now, right?
Yeah, like an older version, right?
It is. No, it's slightly forked.
Okay.
So there's stuff that might come to Android Studio first and then go into IntelliJ and vice versa.
And it's not nearly the hot mess that Eclipse is.
Well, I would say, and this is super subjective, that IntelliJ is a bit easier to configure, a little more better. I'm sorry, I hate to say it like that, but it's just, Eclipse always felt like a bunch of crap strung together. And you screw up one config and your entire environment's busted. Where JetBrains, for the love of God, pay us, goes out of their way to have a lot of little tooltips, very Clippy style, where it's like, oh, you appear to be trying, like this happened to me this morning, actually. I was working on that Android project.
Yeah.
You're trying to make a debug build. Your build settings in release mode. That's not going to work. And there's a little like red exclamation point. You click it and it opens the menu where you change the setting, which is great.
But also annoying. It is annoying.
It's mildly annoying, right? I mean,
I always wanted, something in me wants to blast through those. And I know I can slow myself down and read them, but it's like, okay, I need to work right now. Go away, go.
I don't know. I mean, I very briefly had to install Eclipse again about 6 months ago. It felt slow compared to IntelliJ. Now, that was a Java Spring project. And again, a lot of this comes down to, IntelliJ did not at one point have a community edition.
Right.
So it was a cost choice.
I think that was what really started the trend downward.
Right. Now, there's a lot of like nice plugins and things you can't do in the free edition, particularly around like Java Play and some of the enterprise Java web frameworks. But honestly, like I have a license to IntelliJ Pro and I use Android Studio most of the time because it's fine. Yeah.
I think that's what I would do too. And Rikai in the chat room says I would use anything but Eclipse, including Visual Studio Code.
well, he's joking, right? But like, that's the other side of this.
I think he's not actually.
Yeah, Visual Studio Code is actually a pretty good editor, right? Adam's a good editor.
Yeah.
Sublime Text, TextMate, TextMate's a little old, but Sublime Text exists.
Vim.
Oh, and Vim. And I guess if your beard is magical, you might install Emacs at some point.
I'm sorry, what?
It's negative in the freedom dimension.
How you doing, Richard?
Just stroke it a little bit.
I think he's good.
Only on Tuesdays.
I think he's good. All right. Well, so this whole post, it's about I'd say about a 3 minute. No, not even that. Well, yeah, maybe a 3 minute read. 4 minute read, maybe. You could check it out. We have it linked in the show notes, and I'd also like your thoughts. Coderradio.reddit.com. We'll have a post in there for 223. I don't have a lot to say about this next one, other than it feels like it's kind of tradition when these things crop up on the web. We cover them here in the Hoopla section. This is a project by Mozilla. It's called Thimble. Thimble is an online code editor that makes it easy to create and publish your own web pages while learning. So it is sort of a web page editor in the browser. I'm loading it right now if you're watching the video version. And on the left-hand side, you have a Sublime Text-inspired code editor that is syntax highlighted and all that good stuff. And on the right side, you have a real-time preview of the HTML code. There's a lot of apps like this, but this is created by Mozilla. And I think the intention is to build in some pretty nice features here. And I got to say, overall, for something that's brand new, it's pretty cool. Like I can change the color themes, and I like the syntax highlighting, and it does code folding. I mean, it seems to have some decent features, including the ability to keep track of your web directory and all that stuff. And then I think the intention is you can one-click publish and share it up to a web page. And I don't actually, I'd have to sign in to do the publish feature, and I don't know where that part lands. But this Thimble project is something that's starting to make a little bit of news this week. So I saw a few discussions about it online, so I thought I'd share it with the class. It's thimble.mozilla.org. Yes, that's THIMBLE.mozilla.org. It's nice looking. It's simple.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like something that's for me, right?
No, it's probably not for most people, but it could be something that's for my kids in a couple of years. I think that's definitely a possibility. Or, if you just want to, if you're not super familiar with HTML and you just want to try it somewhere and see a real-time preview if you're doing like the image embed with the size correct, or if this is what the YouTube embed will look like. Those kinds of things in a real-time preview editor are nice, and it's kind of nice that it's backed by Mozilla too. Those are all things that I put in the quote-unquote nice category.
Yeah, it's a good learning tool, I think.
That's exactly what I think the intention is. Yeah, and so I'll have it linked to the show notes, and I hope some people will find it useful. And I suppose the publishing, if they do some hosting there, that could be pretty useful. Now, you were teasing a topic before we did the DigitalOcean spot.
Yeah, so I do have something actually I added into the doc that you didn't see.
Oh, I did. No, you did a little sneaky during the show addition. Is it this Vapor.codes? Okay, tell me about Vapor.codes. What the heck is this?
It is a Swift web development framework. Let that sink in.
Wait, what? What?
A Swift web development framework.
So this is nuts. This is not. No, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. Vapor.codes. This is a fake site. You're trolling me right now.
Nope, this is a real thing. It looks fairly interesting. I'm going to do some basic demos in it to see if it's actually. It's obviously not something for production, but to see if this is something that might at some point make sense, right? Swift on the server.
Yeah. Okay. So this
I'm skeptical because other things exist.
Well, okay, so here's where I'm wondering. I just thought of a use case for this. Is Overcast.fm, right? It has a server-side component that runs on a Linux box. It has a web component for podcast playback in the web browser, and then it has the client component that runs on the iPhone. This where there's a server side, a web side, and an app side. The number one focus is on the app side. Absolute focus on the app side, but the app only is as functional as the server side makes it. So the two are very interlinked. There could be a lot of shared code between all three. Is that am I on the right track with that kind of use case?
Yeah, there ought to be some opportunity to share similar data models between the clients and servers, right? Kind of like what some people are doing with JavaScript web applications and Node.js backends. Some of it too is, if they can get some performance out of Swift, it may actually be a fast choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mean fast like I thought you meant fast in terms of development time, but no, that's not what you meant. You mean fast in terms of actual performance.
Well, I mean both, right? I mean performance compared to something like Ruby or Python.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair. This is pretty impressive. Have you had any chance to poke at it?
No, nothing beyond like a simple hello world get, arbitrary, right? Just an HTTP GET request. I have not been able to install it on my Ubuntu rig yet, which is kind of the biggest deal to me.
Says it works with Ubuntu and DigitalOcean. I love it.
It does. Well, DigitalOcean's just servers.
Yeah. I wonder, but do they mean like you can deploy it on DigitalOcean with like one click? That could be pretty cool.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, nothing says you couldn't do like a Doku image with Docker on Do for this.
Yeah, sure.
And use it like any other.
Oh, and look at that. They have a channel on Slack that you can add.
Of course.
Of course.
It really looks pretty cool.
Nice docs at least. Wow, look at that. That's nice pretty good stuff. Yeah. Can't really see the whole thing in the video frame, but it looks nice.
I'm going to go deep and check this out for you.
I like it. So Vapor.codes and also Vapor.github.io if you want to check it out there. That's pretty cool. So I got to say, if you hear any noises in the background, that's not Rikai rolling around in the studio, it is a thunderstorm. We have a thunder and lightning storm that's going crazy right now here in Washington. So that's what our weather is like. How are things over in your neck of the woods with, there's been those recent bombings and all that. Is everything okay?
Yeah, they arrested some guy earlier today.
Yeah, they did. I know. But is that like local news for you right now? Is that like a...
Yeah, it's the one in, it's pretty local.
Wow. Yikes. Hey, okay, so before we go any further into the show, we have, let me look at we still have, we're going to talk a little Swift 3 here in a moment too. All right. I do want to mention something though, because we have a good community over at coderradio.reddit.com, but I think we could use more love and more input over there. I really would like to get guidance on the topics you'd like to hear on this show, and we are getting some great ones. Oh, I like this one that was just submitted by Chaotic Kernel. Some Go 1.8 benchmarks. And using C++ and Rust, too, by Green Dragon. That's pretty cool. There's some good ones in here. In fact, that's where I found Thimble. Max360SE submitted that 6 hours ago. So shout out to Max. That's where I found Thimble, was the Coder Radio subreddit. coderradio.reddit.com. A couple of things I'd love to see here is engagement in the specific... Wow, do you hear that? Can you hear that thunder? And that's with...
Sounds like Thor's about to kick your ass.
You know what's crazy about that thunder is that's with soundproofing in the studio and an audio gate and all that stuff turned on. Anyways, I'd like to get even more engagement there as we start posting like the weekly challenge threads over there and whatnot. It'd be great. Also, spotlights of projects or really good write-ups that you think that you get an idea for what we like. You think we'd be able to dig into in the show. All of that's appreciated at coderradio.reddit.com. And thanks to Chaotic Kernel and Green Dragon and CFG83, and of course DOMax. Who's DOMax? That sounds familiar. Like, I think I've seen you in some of the other subreddits. Of course, I've seen a lot of these guys in their subreddits. We'd like to see you there too. coderradio.reddit.com. All right, so I want to mention Linux Academy. Go over to linuxacademy.com/coders. We talk about a lot of different things on this show, and some of the fundamentals can be found here, but just beyond that, they have a great educational platform for Linux itself and all of the technology stacks built on top of Linux. If you ever find yourself in the need to pick up a new skill, I want you to consider going over to Linux Academy, either for your job or for a contract or just to challenge yourself. linuxacademy.com/coders is where you go to support this show. That's sort of your landing page. You can check out their features section where they really listed out some of the competitive advantages of Linux Academy. They don't put it here on the page. But I would say their number one advantage is they actually just really care about this stuff. They're really into it. That, I think, really breaks them out, makes them stand out from the others. You know what I mean. The other ones where Linux and these topics are part of what they cover, or it's an area they have a focus on, but it's not what drives them. It's not their passion. That's what drove them to create this platform in the first place. They don't put that on the website because unless you're a user of these technologies, it's a little hard to wrap your head around, and I suppose it's kind of hard to put as a bullet point. But some of the things they do mention I think you'd really find compelling is their labs and exercises. These are hands-on scenario-based labs, give you experience on real servers. These video courses they have are top-notch. They're self-paced, in-depth video courses where you have extra content you can download and listen to on the go and study offline. They have note cards that help you study and the community forks them like an open source project. They have learning paths, which are nice if you want to get in and go down a series of courses and content planned by their instructors for a specific career track. They have nuggets when you have just a little bit of time, and availability planners that help you schedule around your crazy day. They also have iOS and Android apps if you get a minute of downtime, or maybe you're on the bus, something like that. It's pretty cool. And I think you'd also really like the fact that they have instructor mentoring available when you need it. That's a pretty unique feature for these kinds of topics. linuxacademy.com/coders, that's where you go to support the show and learn more about Linux Academy. And thanks to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. I saw somebody grousing on Twitter. Grousing about Swift. Actually, not just Swift, Xcode updates and the pain of all of it. So what's going on, my friend?
So I made the mistake of updating Xcode, and
isn't that how it works? You don't really. It's not so much a mistake as something you're very compelled to do.
Yeah, it's like nudge, nudge. You should probably do this, and then you do the update, and it's like, oh, you're at some point going to need to update your code to Swift 3. So why don't you go ahead and do that? What it doesn't tell you is, oh, you have all these CocoaPods in your project, and that's basically going to break when you do that. And it was one of those things that I was able to recover after about 3 hours of just fiddling with nonsense and setting screens. So this
wait, setting screens? I thought this was an Apple thing. There's no setting screens.
Yeah, there are project build settings. This got me into a way of thinking about. I've been coming around to Swift pretty hard, and this was just one of those things where it's like, geez, maybe this is not something you need to actually like bend to or come around to.
I don't follow.
So Swift 3 is a breaking change from Swift 2.
Okay.
Meaning not all Swift 2 is going to be valid Swift 3.
How likely is that to happen?
I think if you're using a lot of dependencies, it's almost a guarantee.
Okay.
And now in some of those cases, the bigger dependencies, right, have workarounds. You can turn on a compatibility compile for frameworks. You can do things like that. Sometimes there's a Swift 3 branch that you can tell CocoaPods to pull. And if it's a smaller dependency that's not ready to go, you're kind of screwed. Either you're going to do the update for your own use and give it back, or you're going to be sunk. And of course, that says nothing about like your own code, which might need to be changed, right? Now, so you run the convert to Swift 3 thing.
Which you get after you upgrade to Xcode 8.
Right, and the note says you can avoid doing this now, but it will eventually be mandatory. So my position on this stuff, and I did some Googling and kind of read like what is the wisdom on this, is that do it sooner than later. The more code you have, the more it hurts. which is kind of obviously true, right? There is an automated conversion tool that does a lot of like the basic syntax changes. But man, Swift isn't that old.
Yeah, this is a big change, and I guess it's not like they weren't unclear. I mean, it's not only are they...
No, they've been beating this drum, but like there's also no promise of, we will never break it again for X years still, right? And yeah, the person in the chat room, I do have sort of a kind of a flip-floppy relationship with Swift because it's actually not a bad language, except when, like, okay, some of the breaking changes in Swift 3 to me are pure zealotry. Like, oh, we're removing for loops because that's not Swifty. Okay, but like you just broke someone's source code. Like, sure, it's not a ton of effort to go back and refactor that, but it's effort that's not equal to zero.
It reminds you, it's a painful reminder that this is still early days for something that is getting used in a way that you kind of wish it's a painful, uncomfortable arrangement in a sense. Do you follow?
I have a much more practical problem of like, okay, so do I bill the customer for this? Yeah. Because it literally provides no value to the customer whatsoever. In fact, it probably destabilizes the code a little bit because now this is code that hasn't gone through rigorous QA. This is code that some conversion tool touched and, I made what appeared to be correct changes for the syntax, right? It doesn't, neither option is great. Like anytime you're getting in a situation when you're billing a customer for something that's not providing value, that's not good. And I don't really think that upgrading to Swift 3 provides value other than the value of if we do it tomorrow or in 6 months from now or whenever, because at some point, Xcode's pretty clear that Apple is going to force you. If we're doing this with a gun to our head, it may be a more destructive time to do it, right? But that's kind of like the value of, hey, that's a nice project you have there. The other sort of, I want to say, uncomfortable aspect of this is there going to be a Swift 4 next year?
When does the breakage stop?
Right. When does the pain stop? Because sure, you could argue, well, Mike, you did development, you built your customer. That's great. They just built in another 4 hours of work for you that, it's a no-fault upsell, which I guess if you were really, really penny pinching, you could say. But that's not really a great way. One, that's not good for like the vendor because
you have to. It has to be an upgrade. It has to be a platform compatibility improvement, or it has to be sold as an improvement. It has to be. You can't come in and sell it as well. It might make things a little less stable. I'm running it through a magic box. And it's really just because it's kind of an early language, and we kind of rolled it early because we needed to do this job with this code, and so that's kind of what we had to do. Can't sell that.
Like, I've been reading the Swift Evolution stuff and the mailing list a bit, and a lot of it is like very smart, very good changes. A lot of great people working on it, but there's an aspect and a sub-community of like super functional purists. Or I would maybe not functional, but super, we don't like C structures. So we want to get rid of things like for loops, which maybe would have made sense during Swift 1.0, but because they existed, you should leave them in, right? This is a tool, and I would rather so the argument runs both ways, right? They want a more perfect language that makes more sense. I want a more practical language that you already gave me this tool, don't take it away. And I am using a very trivial example of for loops. I understand that like that's not idiomatic Swift, that's not good. Okay. But the concept that at some point there's going to be a vote or some sort of community discussion on GitHub. And if that does not go my way, I will have to call a number of customers and tell them that I'm either going to bill them for this time and they're going to get no value, which basically just opens the door for another vendor to, cold call my customer and possibly book a meeting, right? Because it's a very competitive field. Or I'm going to eat all of this time. And if you have support contracts, well, okay, this is just something you bake into your support contracts.
Yeah.
But what about the 99% of customers who won't sign support contracts, right? And want to just do as needed changes? Now, I do see the thing in Slack, and I have heard that the Swift 4 is promising no breaking changes, which is great. But will that guarantee last the Swift 5, right? Because maybe I'm being like an old curmudgeon about this. I kind of expect like 3 to 5 year stability. Not, oh, we gave you a year off, man. You should be happy. Maybe that's not realistic in today's fast-moving open source world. I don't know.
I don't know. I know Swift is open source, but it feels like it's Apple driving this.
I don't think it's Apple, actually. I
really?
think a lot.
Okay.
I think there was a strong aspect of people outside of Apple in the community who, are kind of doing a good job of like contributing and doing awesome stuff and also making a name for themselves doing Swift. But some of them have very, very strong opinions on making it as pure and functional as possible, which sort of makes sense. But that conversation should have happened internally at Apple with Swift 1, not Swift 3.
Okay, yeah.
And that is, I'll tell you right now, like in the Swift community, that is not a super popular opinion. And Swift 3 does give you a lot of interesting things that I find just sort of helpful. Like some of the interop stuff with Objective-C is better. But, this is something that's a little scary to me. And also that it's not going to change in Swift 4. That's not a legally binding contract, right?
I feel like this is a cultural thing, though, at Apple. Apple will often make changes like this that require you to change your apps to stay compatible. This is not an uncommon thing at all for them. Look what they just did with the headphone jack. They just completely took away that analog input that a lot of third-party dongles use, and now you have to completely redo that product to some sort of wireless solution.
I actually got my my iPhone 7. I ended up canceling the Plus, and literally the day after I got it, I had a golfing trip with 2 buddies, and I forgot my dongle. And I was the driver.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk about it briefly.
Okay, so I have an ironic story for you. So I had 2 things happen to me recently, for those that don't know, that made me decide, all right, I'm going to just get the iPhone. So my primary driver has been the Nexus 6P, and I've been getting less and less happy with it as time went on for a lot of reasons that I won't go on about because I have plenty before. But one of the most recent 2 egregious things that really sealed the deal for me is my camera crashed and quit working on me the day that my second child started kindergarten, so I couldn't take pictures that I wanted of her getting on the bus for the first day of school. So that was extremely disappointing as a parent. And then I went on a road trip, and I was walking down a road, and I looked over, and next to me was a giant, unbelievably huge deer. Just huge deer. I've never been next to an animal that large where they were just sort of chilling. I've been around plenty of deer, especially ones that have been hunted, but this was like a lifetime moment. And I whipped the Nexus 6P out, double tap on the power button, which I finally embraced, and the camera launches, and it's totally blurred, like Vaseline's been put on the lens. I checked the lens, it's clean, and the more I move looking at this thing, the more uncomfortable this animal gets. And I close the app, I relaunch it, won't unblur. I turn around, I try to take a picture of Hadia, try to tap on, to get it focus on her. Won't do anything. I force close the app, relaunch it, won't do anything. And then by that point, the deer starts getting spooked. I reboot the phone, and finally my camera works, and I get a picture of its ass 20 yards away from me with some sort of crappy digital zoom.
So you got your new iPhone, right?
Yeah, I did. I got it. I ordered it as part of the upgrade program, and it arrived on Friday, although I didn't get my hands on it until Sunday. So, but I've spent a lot of time with it since then. And I kind of have an ironic. So I thought the headphone jack thing would be no big deal because I actually only use Bluetooth with my speaker at home and in my truck, and here at the studio I just use the speakers themselves. Except for these last 2 days, I'm driving Hadia's car, which doesn't have Bluetooth. It only has a headphone jack. So the day I get the phone, and for the next 2 days, I'm driving her car, and I don't have a way to listen to my. And of course I forgot the adapter at the studio, so I was driving around without an adapter, and that was kind of ironic. So I told myself it wouldn't be a big deal, and then There, I get hit right in the face. Of course, now I have the adapter in the car, so it's not a big deal. But I do have a couple observations I'd like to share with you that I thought were interesting.
Yeah, let's do a quick 7-minute iPhone review.
Okay, so I think one of the things that I haven't used an iPhone for a little while, so I don't have recent memory of the way the button feels, but to me it feels legit. I was actually surprised. It's weird when it's off, but there is zero delay when I press that button. If there was any delay at all, I think it would be uncanny, but it's right on the money. So that's been pretty nice. One of the things, I don't know if, I guess this is an iOS 10 feature. This is my first real experience with iOS 10, but it is a fundamental game changer for the platform, and it is a huge deal. If you're using the standard iOS input boxes, text input boxes, there is now an ability to use a password manager. And not just iCloud, but I can use LastPass to log into things like Spotify and Dropbox and Slack. And maybe not Slack. Anything that uses its own custom login screen, the apps have to be updated for it. This is frickin' huge because LastPass, then I can unlock with Touch ID, so I can very quickly now use my extremely complicated passwords on my mobile apps, which before I was doing on Android, but it always had a persistent notification, and it's kind of hacky, and it would flip up at the wrong times, and it was very annoying. This is such a clean, smooth implementation of a system-wide password manager. Blows my face off. One more thing specifically to the iPhone 7, because I decided to start clean. Did you do a restore from backup, or did you start clean? Yeah. Clean. I decided to go clean this time, too, since this is the first time I've used an iPhone in a while. And I wonder if your experience was like this, too. I went to the App Store. I went to my quote-unquote purchased apps, which includes all of my purchased and free apps. And I just started going tap, 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 tap down the install. And
I did not do that.
Okay, this was an uncanny, literally unbelievable. Rikai was sitting in the living room with me when I was my mind was like, this is not possible. Before I could get to the next app, the previous app was installed. All of them. Huge apps, all of them installed. I've never seen an app install that fast.
Well, that's that app thinning, right?
Is that what it is? Because holy smokes, is that nice.
They only bundle the assets for your phone size now.
Wow, man. Well, I guess a lot of apps are taking advantage of it because everything just slammed down on my phone faster than I could get to the next app. I was extremely impressed. Also, go ahead.
No, you first, and I'm going to get into mine. Go ahead.
Also, the new speakers, much better. They're not like going to blow your face off. I don't know if they're quite as good as the Nexus 6P, but they're damn close, and they are great for listening to podcasts because since I haven't had the headphone jack, I've been driving down the road just listening to the iPhone speaker in the cup holder, and it is really loud. It's great. I think maybe this is an iOS 10 thing. I like all the new sounds, the keyboard sounds, the new lock sound. And one last thing is iOS 10 has this now widget screen where if you're using the Google launcher, you slide over to the left and it's Google Now. I've built my own Google Now out of these widgets, and it doesn't suck. It doesn't suck at all. Like up front, I have my calendar. Next, I have my reminders, which are tied in specifically with Siri. So when I'm going down the road, I just say, hey, Shlomo, or whatever, or hey, phone, remind me too. And then next time I'm killing 2 seconds and I'm looking at this widget screen, I see my reminders that I've voice dictated. I've integrated several third-party apps into it, including apps that give me news feeds for each show, which is very useful. Dark Sky tells me about the weather conditions way better than Apple's regular weather app. Totally took that out. The maps and stuff are pretty cool. I've got Bitcoin like tickers and stuff in here. I've got Find My Friends in here, and began to try out the new Photos, like Google Plus knockoff features. Google Photos knockoff that auto-generates albums and things like that. Trying that out too, and I've got a feed of that in the widget screen. So between the performance and the iOS 10 updates and the overall just incredible feel in the hand, I got the just the regular black one, and I didn't get the Plus. I just got also something different for me, a small phone, which has been the first small phone in a long time, and I have to keep checking my pockets. I check my pockets all the time because I think I don't have my phone with me. It's amazing. Okay, go.
All right, let me burn through. I have 3 minutes because unfortunately it's one of those days where I have freaking 4 o'clock.
Okay, go.
All right, so I got the iPhone 7 in black, 256 gigabyte edition. That was because I ordered the 7 Plus, regretted it, and then literally was at an event, one of those like local business events, and walked over to T-Mobile. Hey, do you have any iPhones in stock? And there we go.
They did, huh? Yeah.
They did. Like, we have like two, but they're the ridiculously big ones. I said, oh, you mean the Plus? He means, no, they're 256. So I got one.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad when you got a 4K camera with optical image stabilization. You might.
The camera's so much better than Nexus 5X. I am now a camera guy.
Oh God, it's. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good as the S7 because I haven't tested the S7, but it's remarkably better than the 6P. Remarkably.
Yeah. So I go in with, I go into Google Photos because that's what I use for all my photos, and you can tell the difference between the iPhone 7 pictures and the 5X pictures.
Yeah,
The
and
other things
they fire off
I've
a lot
noticed-
faster too.
Yeah. I mean, I literally the day after I got it, I did get bit in the ass by the headphone jack thing. I had a car. I told, like I said on the top of the show.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, I think this is a great device. I haven't seen any real issues with it.
Smoking fast, just unbelievably fast. I mean, it's just crazy. Actually, I would say it's as fast as it finally should have been. That's nice. And the battery life, I don't have a lot of experience with because I've only had it for a couple of days and I've been on it pretty steadily. But so far, it seems to be pretty solid.
So I cannot wait to go to release notes with a brand new iPhone 7. It's like joining the tribe.
One more thing I'll just say is Apple puts way too many apps on this thing by default now. It is a shit show, and I've got them all like.
That was literally the first thing I did was to delete most of their apps.
Yeah. Also, I went through the notification screen, got those all tied down, so I got real tight notifications right now. I like how that's managed in iOS compared to Android. It's really slick. So
it's pretty good. The only thing I would say is I kind of miss Google now.
Well, you can install the Google app. It's not quite the same, but it's there. Mr. Dominic, where should people find you throughout the week when they want to reach out?
At Dumanuco on Twitter.
What about the business?
At Buccaneer Tech on Twitter.
There you go.
Buccaneer.io.
Got to check out the Buccaneer.io site. Got to give it a plug. Mike just might have some services right up your alley. Don't forget to watch us live, JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar for those live times. You can find it at jblive.tv. That's where the stream is. CoderRadio.reddit.com and JupiterBroadcasting.com/contact if you want to send us in some emails. Okay, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Coder Radio, and we'll see you right back here next week.